Owen, a year of my life. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get straight into it and cut back to 2007. You've been at Bayern Munich for a decade. You've won everything there is to win, 4 league titles, the Champions League. What sparked the move to Manchester United?
Yeah, just that actually. The fact that, at Bayern we had been fortunate to be on a team that was able to win things. And I'd been there for 10 years. I went there at 16. I was 26, and I just felt like I needed a new sporting challenge, and I was the only one who played in the national team that didn't play in the Premier League. So every time we met up, everyone was saying, when are you going to come to the Premier League? When you come to the Premier League? So it just felt like a good time. And when Man United come calling and Sir Alex comes calling, then it's hard to say no. And plus I knew all the guys from England, Gary Neville and Rio and Wayne Rooney. So I knew I was joining a really special group of players, and to play with some guys that I loved. Ryan Giggs was one of my heroes. Play with Paul Scholes, who was one of my favorite players ever. It was just Cristiano, Ronaldo. It was just a crazy team to be a part of. So it made it an easy decision.
Absolutely. It seemed to be a deal that took forever. What was the hold-up?
Well, Bayern Munich don't sell players. That's just a fact. I remember I got fined a couple of times. I didn't do anything wrong, but Man United wanted me, and I was never going to force my way out. I wasn't like that, but I wanted. It was just a fresh challenge, and I think Bayern understood that in the end. With playing in the national team, you see this similar now with Leroy Sané at City. To go back to Bayern, when you go back to your home country, it's kind of makes it slightly different rather than just switching anywhere. So Bayern didn't want to sell me. I remember Karl-Heinz Rummenigge said to him, "But I'm not going to sell you," And then I think after a year, we had a team function with about 500 people there, and he was in front of everyone talking about the season. He said, "Oh, and you can go to Man United now," so in front of everyone. That's the first I heard of it. So
Did you joke?
Like, oh, okay. I didn't even know, and it wasn't that I wanted to leave Bayern. I loved Munich. I really did. It's one of the best cities you'll ever go to in your whole life. But I just thought to go to a team to win a Champions League. Right at that time, Bayern, we couldn't do that. We were transitioning from the old generation to the young one, which was Philipp Lahm and Schweinsteiger, from Ballack and Oliver Kahn. So we were a bit behind, and I think Bayern did a clever job. That money they bought Frank Ribéry with, who's one of their greatest ever signings. So I think in the end it took a while, but these things sometimes do in football.
Talk me through that first conversation on the phone with Sir Alex, because I've read that he actually said to you, "I want to bring you to Manchester United because I want to win the Champions League with you." Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the. I think he was. I remember I was in a restaurant with some of the Bayern players. We had just been knocked out in the Champions League, and we watched the game in a restaurant. We knew one of the owners of the restaurant. We watched the game, and it was Man United against AC Milan, and AC Milan knocked out Man United, and they had seemed to just come to that hurdle and then get stuck a few times. And I think Sir Alex realized, that he was putting pieces of the puzzle together, and he had a lot of good ones, and I was able to come and be a part of that. So, yeah, I think his ultimate goal, like Bayern, Bayern win the Bundesliga. Man United are always thereabouts with Chelsea and Arsenal to win the Premier League. So it's not just about winning that, but it's also about, can you win the Champions League? It's hard. We all know that. Sir Alex knows that. And he put together a team which was the greatest team I ever played on in terms of individual players. To go with his management, it was a good mix.
And arguably one of the greatest Premier League teams to play the game. You mentioned some of the names there. You've got Scholes, Giggs, Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez. How did you feel that first day at training, walking out on the grass with these guys?
Well, it was easy. The good thing about going to a team like that is everyone. When you get to see the guys on the telly all the time, when you go in the dressing room, you know them all. You even know their nicknames. So that made it easier. And yeah, I was just excited, to get to work. I remember one of the first days in training, we did this thing, this game or something, and I tackled someone, not hard, but just quite physical. And I love Scholes because he's always so like honest. And he said to me, "Oh, and we don't have to you don't have to tackle like that here. It's not really." Even though he used to fly into people, but in Germany, it was so competitive, you know, like everybody went for each other every day. And at United, it was, but it was more cool. Do you know what I mean? And the way he said it was just so chilled. And I just thought, okay, that's cool, you know, like, and yeah, the thing I loved about that team, it was super talented, but everybody got on really well. You know, we had all these like different cultures and languages and personalities. Everybody meshed. You know, it was pretty cool to see.
You made your debut, your Premier League debut against Manchester City. No biggie, just the Manchester derby. You'd obviously played in some huge derbies at Bayern Munich, but how did that compare?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I played in World Cups and Champions League finals, so obviously it was big. It was my first game for United, and I remember at halftime we were losing 1-0, and I was walking off after because we were, you know, and we had a bad start to the season that year. We hadn't really won many games, strangely. And as I was walking off, Rio was kind of ran by me, and he said, "Owen, hurry up, Gaffer's going to go crazy." And I looked at him and thought, "Wow, we haven't done anything wrong. We're just losing the game. You know, we played pretty well. We're just unlucky." And it was interesting, the fact that Rio said that, even though being, you know, like a tough kid from, you know, London, but he knew the boss was in charge, you know, and he knew the boss, because it was a derby, he could be annoyed. And we got in, and the boss said, "Look, I don't know how you're losing. You know, you're better than them, but we're losing. So keep doing what you're doing. We'll win the game." And we didn't win the game in the end, but we actually played really, really well. But I just remember the boss, even Rio thought he was going to get mad, and he actually didn't. You know, he said, "If we keep playing like that, we'll be fine." You know, and he was right. You know, even though we didn't win the game, he knew that once he put all those pieces of the puzzle together, it was going to be pretty good.
I mean, that was going to be one of my questions. Was Sir Alex different for derby days or for certain games, or when you took on Liverpool, did something change about him with each game, or did he just react to every given situation?
No, he had a plan with his staff weeks in advance, 2-3 weeks in advance. And Liverpool was, I think, one of the biggest games. I remember we played at Anfield. I forgot what time. It might have been November or something. And that was a good Liverpool team. And before we went out, he just stopped me in the dressing room. He said, "Owen, this is unlike any game you've ever played in." And I was thinking, "But boss, I played in like a few big games, you know, like it's an away game in the Premier. I get that." And he said, "Oh, and Anfield is different. You know, if you think you got 2 touch, trust me, you got 1." He said, "The first 20 minutes will be a blur." And I thought, okay. And sure enough, the first 20 minutes, because of the fans and the emotion and the intensity, everybody was getting after each other. There's no time, literally. And the ball was just kind of in the air. And then once the game settled down, we controlled the game, and I think we won it. But he was right. You know, he knew he was just trying to give you a little piece of information leading into the game. But yeah, he planned every game weeks in advance, within reason. I think he penciled people in, best case, and then depending on who was fit, then he picked it.
As a pundit, I hear you guys on various BT Premier League TV that the Premier League is the toughest league to come and play in. When was the moment that became apparent for you, when you went, "Oh yeah, this is tough"?
I don't know if it's any. I think every league's different, so it's hard to. I never got to play in Spain or Italy, and I'm sure it's pretty tough too. But I think the thing about the Premier League is the fans want their team to do well. So when you go wherever, you go to West Ham or you go to any game away, the fans expect their team to give it everything and to have a go and not to just sit in. So the refs let the game go a little bit more than maybe in Germany. They don't whistle as much. So in the end, it makes it more physical and it's more competitive. And I think just maybe the intensity is a bit higher, because in Germany at times, I remember we used to, when we played the English teams in the Champions League, we used to say always, just get through the first 20 minutes and you'll win the game. Not in a disrespectful way, but we knew the English teams, the British teams, used to come out like a tornado. And in the Premier League, that works, you know, because the bigger teams are better than the smaller ones and they can blow them over. But when you get into Europe, which a lot of the English teams have found, if the other team is really good in possession and they control the game, then that intensity kind of isn't as apparent. And then you see the English teams go, "Oh, you know, our intensity is not working." So I think in the Premier League it works because everybody plays like that. But you just got to be careful that when you play the top teams, like the Barças and the Reals, and they're confident enough to play through pressure, that it doesn't work as straightforward. But, you know, I think the intensity is higher in the Premier League for sure.
You scored 2 goals in that opening season, 2 free kicks against Fulham and Arsenal. How do you go about wrestling the ball off Cristiano Ronaldo in those situations?
Ask politely, like anything. But to be fair, we used to practice all the time, and he knew I could take him and stuff. And I mean, that's the only thing I'd say. I always played in a team where we had really genuine world-class players. So as a young kid, it's hard to get on free kicks, even though you can do it. So I couldn't, you know, if I ever got one, which wasn't very often, even at Bayern, I had to score, because if I didn't score, I wouldn't get one for a while. But we used to practice all the time, and Cristiano knew I could, and I love that about him. I remember we played, because I scored a couple, and then we practiced before the Champions League final against Chelsea that year. And he was on one side of a wall, on the other side of the box, and I was on one. And I hit about 9 out of 10 into the top corner. Edwin was in goal. And Edwin came to me and said, Owen, if we get a free kick in the Champions League final, this was the week before the Champions League final against Chelsea, so if we get one, you've got to take it to win a Champions League final. I said, I can't take it off Cristiano. That's Cristiano Ronaldo. Anyway, we get to the dressing room. We're warming up to go out on the pitch. Before we go out, nobody's around. Cristiano walks over and he says to me, Owen, if we get a free kick today, it's yours. I saw you practicing. And that's who he was. You know, everybody thinks he's like, it's all about him and he's an egomaniac. But if you're good at something, he's the first one to see that. And that's why I got to take a couple that year, because he knew, you know, I might score. And I admire that about him. I really do.
He scored 31 goals in the league that year, 42 in all competitions. He was quite simply phenomenal. Describe his work ethic. What was he like to be around?
Yeah, I remember we used to be in the gym all the time before training every day. Him, myself, Rio Ferdinand, with the strength coach, Mike Clegg. Because Mike had this real great energy about him. You know, he used to just put the boys in their place all the time. He used to slaughter them. And the boys liked it, you know, because they wanted to improve. And I remember every time I went in the gym, Cristiano was there doing his sit-ups with this medicine ball with Mike. And I remember he finished his set right early on in the season. He said, "Oh, and I want to be the best player in the world. I want to be the best player in the world." And he wasn't yet. And that year, as you said, all the goals he scored, we won the Premier League, we won the Champions League. And he knew once he won the Champions League, that would put him in a category which almost made it undeniable. So his work rate was crazy. You know, his talent was undeniable, but his work rate was almost as good. So when you match talent with work rate, which most people don't have, then you get what he is, which is almost like a creation from something. You know, he's unstoppable.
Was there some healthy competition between him, Rooney, Tevez to get on the score sheet week in, week out?
That was the cool thing about that group. You know, everybody, they were pretty unselfish in a way. You know, everybody looked out for each other. I think when you get really good players together, the good players make the right decision, because they're used to making the right decision. They don't, you know, they don't just do it because they want to score. And I think that group, they were all really unselfish. They were all obviously super talented, but they respected each other, you know, and as much as they wanted to score, they knew especially with Sir Alex, if you didn't play the right ball at the right time, you were going to hear about it. So all the boys he kept everybody on their toes in a good way. And I think that's what makes a great team. Like Liverpool now, you know, the manager has such control of the group that the players respect the boundaries. And when you do that and you have all these great players, then you got a chance to make something really special.
The league title would come down to the final day. You guys were playing Wigan, Chelsea had Bolton. Describe the mentality of the squad heading into that game at Wigan.
Yeah, win the game. You know, we controlled our own destiny. We knew that, you know, so just win the game. And I think when you go to a place like Wigan, you know, pretty close journey from where we were, you know, you expect us to win. But you never know in those moments, you know, you never know what could happen. But think the focus was just do the job, do the job and win the game. And I think we were fortunate enough to do that. But also we had a lot of eyes on what was going to happen in, the Champions League final was a couple of weeks away as well. So that wasn't just win and celebrate. We knew that season we had the possibility to do something really special. So that was really cool to win, celebrate together. Not too big because we had to be ready for the Chelsea, but to take that momentum into the final. That was important for us.
I remember watching the game, and you knew when you'd pretty much won it because the fans went crazy when the equaliser was scored in the game against Chelsea. So it was over. How did you react? Because you'd won titles at Bayern Munich, but in your first season in England, you've gone and picked up the Premier League title, a trophy missing from the cabinet. How did it feel?
Well, that's why I moved. I would have been disappointed if we wouldn't have. So, but it was just nice to be a part of that team. Everybody talks about winning stuff, and it is important. But the journey is pretty important too. The whole 10 months you're together in pre-season and you're traveling and you're going through the difficult times, ups and downs. To then be able to put your hands on a trophy at the end of the season and to know you did it all together, even with the staff, the staff behind the scenes at a football club are so important. And to celebrate with them is pretty cool. So I think we had a good time that night. But then I remember we didn't want to get too comfortable because we knew we could make that season even better by winning the Champions League.
You'd already done a pretty great job in the Champions League, topped the group. It was a phenomenal defensive display. I remember just conceding one goal up until the final, and notably those 2 legs at Barcelona. How do you go to the Nou Camp and come away with a 0-0? Describe that game and the moments that stand out.
Yeah, I think that's a pinnacle for every player, to go to a place like that. Where knockout stage, everything's riding on it, and that was a great Barca team. Young Messi was doing his thing, but we had a good team. As much as we had great players, we went there and we played on the counter attack. We let them have the ball. I played right back for whatever reason. I think in all the games I played a different position every round, but. It was just, I remember Wayne Rooney played in front of me on the right wing, and we never played there, but the boss had a plan, and, you got to say it worked. That was, I think that team didn't get enough credit for how good it was defensively. We kept a great Barcelona team out over 2 legs, and Scholes scores, a wonder goal at Old Trafford. But yeah, I think that was one of the highlights of that season.
Just even back then, you mentioned a young Messi, you had a young Ronaldo. Did Ronaldo mention the fact that he'd be taking on Messi and he wanted to prove that maybe he would be the better of the two over the 2 legs even back then?
I think anytime you want to get the best of the people in your category, but I think Cristiano was more focused on what we needed to do. He knew that to get in that category that he wanted to be in, he had to win the titles, And as good as those guys are, you can't do it without your teammates. And he had good teammates, and he knew he had to win first. Once he was able to win, then people would look at the individuals more. So, yeah, we knew we could rely on Cristiano in those games, come up with big moments. That season, every time we needed something special, he produced it. So. That day, or over those 2 games, as good as Messi played, Man United got to the final and Barcelona did it. And that's probably what also helped Cristiano win the Ballon d'Or that year.
Yeah. And talking of big players producing in the big moments, everyone talks about Scholes' blockbuster goal in the second leg. But how was the feeling in the team? Because it must have felt like a real team effort and a team achievement. How did you all feel after shutting Barcelona out over 2 legs?
Yeah, I think we were really proud because we didn't really have to play like that very often that season. We dominated most teams. So, but the cool thing about that team was we could play on the counter-attack when we needed. Almost a bit like the Liverpool team now. They can blow teams away, but when they need, they can mix it up anyway. They can be physical, they can play on the counter, and that team, that was the only time really that season we really had to suffer a little bit. And, you know, okay, we suffered, but we had a game plan. I remember Sir Alex and Carlos Queiroz, they worked on a game plan defensively for a couple of days, so much to the point that the boys were getting annoyed, you know, that they just had to stand in this shape. But you got to credit the coaches, you know, it worked. You know, they had something they thought could work, and it was executed well. So I think the players took pride in the fact that we played a bit different than we did all season, but we did because we wanted to win.
Let's move on to the final, the first ever all-English European final. How did Sir Alex get you pumped up and prepped for that one? Because, wow, Chelsea v Manchester United after you've just battled for the Premier League title.
He didn't need to. He knew the boys. He knew the boys were ready. I remember we did a training game in the stadium in Moscow the day before, and we almost had a fight amongst the two teams because the training game was so intense. You know, one team lost and everyone was moaning at each other, and so I had to come in and break it up. And that's how it was. You know, everybody was so competitive about winning. So even in a training game, you know, you would think people didn't want to get injured, but that wasn't the case. You know, everybody was just on it. You know, they were just, you know, so excited for that game. And obviously we knew the Chelsea boys so well. We were obviously playing in the Premier League, but then with England as well, John Terry, Frank Lampard, Ashley Cole, I knew Balak from my Bayern days. And we were meeting up about 3 days later for a game at Wembley against the US. So, you know, we just, obviously you want to win, you know, and it makes it a bit stranger when you play in a Champions League final that you know the guys so well. But ultimately in the end, it's about competition, you know, and we were fortunate because it's hard when you get to the Champions League final and then it goes down to details like penalties. Somebody has to lose, you know, and you know, John Terry slipped and Elka missed, and all of a sudden they lose and we win. And obviously we were delighted with it, and then we just kept our head down when we got together with the national team a few days later and tried not to look too happy.
Talk me through that penalty, because with your German background, you don't lose penalty shootouts. It was a bit of a risky penalty, but was it top left as well? You really went for it. How did you feel walking up to the spot? Yeah,
I always took my penalties like that. All the boys knew I took the penalty. Even the Chelsea boys knew I took it like that. You know, Frank and JT and Ash and Balak, they were pointing to check. I was going top left behind me. And so much so that when I walked up, I thought, I said, those guys are going to tell him where I'm going. So I thought in my mind, because it's like a 10-second walk on your own. I thought, I might just go to the other corner on the bottom, you know, just because it's the opposite. And I thought, what am I thinking? Just do what you do well, you know, and if he saves it, he saves it. So I always went that way. I remember Geeksy said to me after, he said, I knew you were going to score. I had no doubt. So, but you obviously, you get up there and you see the goal and you see Czech and the fans behind. You can, I wouldn't say have doubt, but you can think, oh, you know, should I do something different? So I'm glad I trusted my instinct and hit it like a free kick.
Yeah, he almost got a hand to it, didn't he? Wow. You won it in the end. The celebrations were superb. How did 01 and 08 compare for you?
Oh, so different. I mean, 01 was my first year in football, you know, so much so that my mom and dad flew over from Canada, I remember, and I didn't even celebrate because I didn't want the boys to think I was like a one-hit wonder. So I just sat quietly in the corner. I had a Coke with my mom and dad, didn't even celebrate because I was already in my mind preparing for next season. You know, I wanted them to know I'm in business. So, yeah, that was cool. But to be fair, it was my first season, so I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know how hard it was to get to a Champions League final. But we were able to win that. So 07, 08 was cool because I knew it was a tough journey to get there. And that team just came together at the right time. And yeah, we were really fortunate that we just, when the moments when we needed something, we had an answer.
It was a wonderful, wonderful game. Great season. Sadly for you, a lot of your career after that at United was blighted by injury. How do you then reflect on 07, 08?
That was my only healthy season, you know, and when I was healthy, I played, 38 games or something like that, and we won a lot. You know, I played a part, but after that, I had some treatment, which you know, ultimately I was never able to play again to the same level. So really humbling for me, because I thought I had a long time left in football, you know, at that age. And yeah, 27 was too young to. I would, if you would have asked any of my teammates or anyone, that could have been my last game against Chelsea. Well, we played the US 3 days later. That was arguably my last healthy game. Then, you know, I think everybody would have said no way, because I trained so hard. But you know, life is unpredictable, you know, and I could have never imagined that for myself. But once I had to have knee surgery and try to fight back and come back, I was never the same, you know, which was crazy, because my body took me all the way from Canada to Germany to the UK to play for England, even though I was born in Canada, to do all these things. It carried me so far further than I could have ever imagined. Then to also then have it taken away from you was almost the opposite, you know. So it was humbling in a way, but I was blessed for a while, and then I had some bad luck for a while. But that's your journey. Everyone has a different one. That was mine. Can't change it, you know. Can't live in the past.
Yeah, wonderful career, Owen. You've played with some of the greats, won it all. Congratulations. And thank you for sharing with us a year of your life. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you.